Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you cruise smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show, Christy Puddick, our co-host from PackYourPixieDust.com. How are you doing today, Christy?
Hi, I am excited.
Why are you excited?
Because this is our 100th episode.
Who knew there would be 100 episodes of the DCL podcast?
I mean, for real. And for our listeners, we are both real tired. We were just talking about how tired we were and how crazy our lives are. But I'm excited about recording this podcast. I'm excited about asking you questions, and I'm excited about our 100th episode.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, I thought we'd just go over a couple fun things. First thing being, like how we got this podcast started, and then I thought we'd go over just a couple fun things that we enjoy about Disney Cruise Line and cruising in general. And then I think you've got some fun questions for us today.
I do. I have asked the pilot questions, so I'm going to interview you a little bit.
Oh, man. And
They are very random.
You've been wanting to do this show for quite a while, so hopefully people will find it interesting.
I think they will.
Well, before we kick it off, I really want to give out a couple thanks, and this comes from Christy and I think, and you can add yours in as well, Christy. But first of all, I really want to give, and we've mentioned her name several times, but I really want to give a huge thanks to Kim Slusher, because if it wasn't for her podcast that she used to do...
We have to thank her.
We do, yes. We do have to thank her together, who started the Distracted Life podcast and did that for several years. And Kim got Christy and I both into podcasting. Matter of fact, it was one of her shows where she was doing a show on just, I think it was a podcast day or something like that. And I know a lot of you have heard this before from me, but I'll just say it one more time for those of you who may be new listeners or whatnot. But she came on and she talked about how many different bloggers there were versus how many podcasters. And she really challenged everybody, if they had something to say, to start their own podcast. And that was the thing that pushed me over the edge. Christy, how about you?
So I get the beauty of not having to create the podcast and just speaking on the podcast. And I think I stalked her and stalked you to be able to come on these podcasts and talk. I love it so much. I just love talking travel, and it's so fun to hear back from listeners that have gotten something out of what we've said, and just random people from my life that have come out and said, "Oh my gosh, I listened to you," or my babysitter that I had when I was a kid reached out on social media and has been listening to the podcasts and actually listened first to Kim's Distracted Life and listened to me on there. And then now we're over here, obviously. And she came over to the DCL podcast and started listening and then reached out to say it. That is awesome. It's just so crazy. Like, it brings, this world that is actually really is giant is become so small because we can reach so many people and people can reach out and we can just have new friendships. So you and I are friends because of the podcast, and I love it. I love that I get to have this person that I can text and share random travel stuff with. And my husband is fine and he loves to travel, but he does not want to talk about it. And so I have other people that I can talk about it to. It's so fun.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the points that I wanted to make as well. That's probably one of the best things about starting this podcast is not only meeting you, Christy, but just all the other listeners that we've met along the way and people that we've luckily, been fortunate enough to impact maybe their travel and help them out in their travel. But to be honest, a lot of them have helped us out in our travel experiences too. And some of the things some of the things that we never thought of that we have kind of implemented in our latest cruises and just travel in general.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I really want to give a huge shout out to Kim. If it wasn't for her, I don't think that I would have started this podcast. And a huge shout out to you, Christy, for reaching out to me, because to be honest, to run a podcast by yourself, I think is really hard. And having somebody like yourself, the two of us, where we can bounce ideas back and forth, makes it a lot easier.
Well, thank you for taking me with you.
Yeah,
for real.
Yeah.
Out of my heart. Thank you. It is so fun.
It is. And, a couple more shout outs. None of these are in, any huge order or anything like that. But overall, we want to really thank all of you, the listeners, who've taken time to listen to the show and to interact with us. And that includes in no particular order, all of you who have taken time to come on our show and kind of share your experiences. That's just been huge. It's been fun getting to talk to you, get to hear your experiences. And we really want to thank all of you who have taken time to join our Patreon page and to be Patreon supporters. That's really helped us out as well. And finally, those who have written, reviews either on iTunes. We got one on Podbean the other day, which I didn't even know our podcast was on Podbean. So there's a lot of places. It's like water; it just kind of seeps everywhere, which is a cool thing. So wherever, if there's somebody who's left a message or a review out there, that really helps our show get known. And we haven't caught it. I know that I guess iTunes. I just found this out. iTunes has a different site over in Europe. So like, if you've left a review in Europe, I have to go to a different site to find that out, which I have not found and have not done yet. So I apologize if anybody's done it, but we really do appreciate it, and I will find it and make sure that we make note of it and make sure you get credit for helping us grow our show.
And maybe those European listeners could screenshot and or their reviews and perhaps others and send it to one of us, and then we will know what has been said.
So just once again, from Christy and I, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for listening. We hope that you've gotten as much out of this podcast as we have been as far as building it and putting it out every week. And we look forward to the next 100 shows, don't we?
For sure.
I thought this would be kind of a fun thing to do, just to, I think people like to hear what other people think. And I think that's why they come to our podcast, because that is a huge part of our podcast. We don't necessarily do the breaking news every week or anything like that. It's more about, what were people's experiences? What did they do on the cruise? What were they thinking about beforehand and everything else? And so I think, just getting to hear those different experiences and what they think, I thought we'd kind of roll that into some just fun questions today before we jump into the pilot questions. And we talked a little bit about how we got the podcast started, but I thought we'd talk about a few of our favorite things. What do you think, Christy?
I think it's a great idea.
I think you've got a question to start with, Christy.
Yeah, so even before our favorite things, because now that we're listening to podcasts, let's dig into our brains, but when did you first start listening to podcasts? Like, how did you learn about it? And do you remember what year it was?
The one thing I do remember, and I don't remember exactly the year that I started listening to podcasts, is in travel, what I used to do is always get into the hotel room when we get to our layover city. I turn the TV on, and I either turn the news on or ESPN or something like that, just to have background noise. And I don't know, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, somebody told me about podcasts. I think I heard about it from somebody I flew with. And so I was just playing around with it one day, and over the course of a month or two, I just stopped turning the TV on. And I can tell you in the last 4 years, I think I've turned the TV on in my hotel room maybe 2-3 times. And what I do is I just listen to podcasts. And it's funny because it's just become a huge part of my life, because you can listen to what you want to listen to rather than what is being pumped out onto the TV.
I agree completely. And I started listening to podcasts right before I had Blake. So I do have a year time frame because I know when he was born. That's the 1 year I can remember. But so I got my first iPhone around 2013. And at that same time, I was pregnant and getting ready for Blake and thought that maybe I would have time to do something. I don't know what I was thinking, but that I could listen to podcasts while I was feeding him or whatever. And my husband had listened to podcasts, not about travel, but he was listening to science and just whatever. And so I looked, and there were a million Disney podcasts. And so that's how I started, is looking for travel podcasts. And I listened right around when my son was born.
Do you remember which was some of your first podcasts, or the first podcast you listened to? Or which one I guess maybe not the first podcast you necessarily listened to, but which one did you start listening to over and over again?
I don't remember that.
Okay, no problem. I do. So I got
what was it?
I got hooked on Wedway Radio. If anybody's listened to Wedway Radio, have you listened to that?
Very little.
I loved Matt and Nate. And Nate is still doing the show. Matt is still doing the show. Nate's kind of taking a hiatus, but Matt is still doing the show. I love his, I don't know, their personalities just meshed with mine. So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed Disney history. And that was a huge part of their first, the first rendition of Wedway Radio was just all this Disney history. And I was like, man, this is amazing to be able to, rather than listen to whatever the news channel wants to send out, I can actually listen to something I'm somewhat interested in, or I'm really interested in. And there's hours and hours of it, of them talking in just all different aspects of Disney history. So that was the first one I guess I got hooked on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember that early on, Kim's husband, we were on a board together for a Facebook page for travel agents. And it was either that I was asking a question or he was responding with, hey, my wife has this little podcast that she started. And I feel like he asked if anybody wanted to talk. I doubt that is really what happened. But something like that. Like, he put it out there and I started listening to hers right from, like, binge listening. I loved it. I just liked what she had to say, and I don't know. So it was Distracted Life was one of the first ones that I really started listening to, and it was pretty early on that I did some guest appearances on her show.
And hers was one of the ones that I found pretty quickly after that as well. Probably within the next year or so, I found Kim's podcast. I really enjoyed what she and Angie did, and then also the Be Our Guest podcast. Believe it or not,
yes.
And I still listen to that one quite a bit. Off and on. I love when they do the Trip Reports. I listen to a lot of the Trip Report ones. Those are really cool.
Yeah, the Monday show is great while I'm getting ready to go to work.
Yeah. So, you know what? I would love to hear if there's anybody out there that wants to jump on the Facebook page or tweet out to us or whatever else, your first podcast that you listen to. I'd love to hear that as well, just for the fun of it. So if you guys want to throw it out there on our DCL Facebook page, that'd be kind of cool. Maybe we'll throw that up as a question.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we'll throw that up there so you can. It's kind of an add-on to this episode. Go to the Facebook page and then put out your information and stuff like that. So it would be kind of interesting to see what other podcasts out there people are listening to as well. So, well, let's jump into some of our favorite questions here. What do you think?
Great idea.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot first, and I'm going to just throw it out there, and we'll just keep these Disney Cruise Line centered. You and I have been fortunate to go on some other cruise lines as well, but we'll just keep this rolling with Disney Cruise Line today. But what has been your favorite cruise, or what's your go-to cruise that you've been to with DCL?
Well, those aren't the same answer.
That's true. You're right, because I know the Double Dip is probably going to be your cruise every night. But okay, what's been your favorite cruise?
My favorite cruise has to be the Panama Canal cruise. I mean, it's just such an awesome cruise no matter what. So the 14 nights on the Wonder was so amazing. So that has to be my favorite cruise.
And I'm going to go with our cruise to Norway. I never thought that we'd ever actually do something like that. And I know Alaska gets Alaska is amazing, just beautiful scenery up there. To be honest, you're probably closer to the land up in Alaska more than you are when you go to Norway. But there was just something about being over in Europe. My mom is originally from Norway, so that was a huge reason why we went to go up there. And so we've got kind of I don't know. There's a family history, I guess, from there. We always have Norwegian food at Christmas time and that type of stuff. Lefse and lutefisk, if anybody has ever had that. So, but that was just an amazing cruise. So you stopped in these little towns. The Magic parked right downtown. You could walk right into town from there. You didn't get the feel that it was like overly touristy, other than Bergen. Bergen, is kind of a touristy town, the main part there. But the other towns that we went to, it was almost like just stopping. It almost felt like, like being in the old world or something like that, where you're just stopping along. I think it kind of feels maybe the way a river cruise does, where you stop and there's not like a Diamonds International and 100 t-shirt shops or something like that.
Right.
So that was just amazing. And then, I mean, the creme de la creme of the whole thing was sailing up to Geiranger, up the fjord, and probably one of them. And I'm going to answer, I guess, the next question. That is by far our favorite port, or is my favorite port that we've ever been to, which is Geiranger. It's a small little town at the very end of a fjord up in northern Norway. And it's probably one of the most beautiful places I think I've ever been. So I'm going to go with our Norwegian cruise.
Excellent.
So how about you? I talked about the port for me. What has been your favorite port experience?
But we never answered, before we get to do that, you never answered our go-to cruise, the one that we can easily book anytime. And I kind of have two for that.
Okay,
because
go for it.
And you gave us the one answer, my double dips. Okay. I love me a double dip. We'll talk about my favorite port, but I love the double dip. I just love going to Castaway Cay. I think it's so easy and it's so laid back. They did such a great job with that island. But my other maybe go-to is just the 7-night Eastern Western in the Caribbean in the middle of winter. Like when I want to get out of Michigan, January through March, it is so great to just let me pick a cruise. And I don't care which location I'm going to. Let me just get on it for the week and get out of this cold.
Well, those are both two amazing cruises. I would put put, man, I'm torn because I want to say the Fantasy. That was just such a fun cruise out to the Eastern Caribbean, and it was just an amazing ship as well. But I think I'm going to go, my go-to cruise is going to be out of San Diego and down to Mexico, like a nice 5-day cruise. You don't have to make the trek for us all the way across the country. It's easy to pop down to San Diego. Great town to spend some time in either before or after the cruise. And then it's always fun to be on the Disney Wonder. So I'm going to go with that one.
I think that's, for West Coasters, that's a good answer.
Yeah, and there was like some Scott Sanders put that out about like Disney being involved with possibly helping to rehab the San Diego port. And I think some people are thinking like maybe they might put a ship out here. I don't know about that because I'm not sure that they have the itineraries out here. Although they could flow it maybe like for a year and do some Hawaii cruises. I don't know if they could run enough. I don't know what the demand would be for Hawaii, like over and over again. That one-off sold pretty quickly. But any thoughts on that, Christy?
Yeah, I feel like they could do that back-to-back a couple of times, but not for an entire year.
Yeah, I don't think like...
You never know, but...
Right. I mean, this is just us speculating. I mean, it's not like the Caribbean where they can, run it back and forth. I don't see them doing that. And then you really only have Mexico. I mean, I guess maybe they could get a little bit further down through Central America, down towards the Panama Canal, but I don't know how much that would work. But it would be cool to see maybe the Wonder 6 months of the year out here or somebody like that. Maybe they send the Fantasy out here. Wouldn't that be awesome?
That'll never happen.
I know. That's my fantasy, right? Yeah.
That is your fantasy.
Maybe someday. All right. Well, let's jump into something else. How about this? How about your favorite restaurant aboard the ships? And we'll exclude Paolo and Remy.
Okay. Tiana's Place. Hands down.
Okay. Why?
The music, the ambiance, the music, really. The live entertainment. And I really need to figure out how to get back on the Wonder just to go back there.
You need to do one of those New Orleans cruises or something like that.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know if that would fit into you guys' itineraries or time schedule or not. So Tiana's Place, I was kind of torn on this one because I know what I want to say. And I want to say...
Well, no one's telling you what answer you can say.
I know, but it's just like I'm totally charged. So I'm gonna go with Triton and Lumiere's. So I'm just gonna go with that. They've got my escargot, which is by far my favorite. It's my favorite appetizer to get, beforehand. I just like the ambiance of it. It's a little bit more formal. They always have. I like the French themed menu. So I'm gonna go.
But we didn't talk about the food. You didn't say with the food.
Well, that's true. Okay. I mean, if you're looking for atmosphere, I'm with you on Tiana's, but I guess I was thinking the whole thing across. So, all right. Should we back up? We can't go backwards now, can we?
I think we are just going to keep jumping these topics. My food for an appetizer, so you have your escargot. I really like it when they don't mess it up. My fried brie.
Oh.
So, oh man, it's so good.
Yeah, and anything beyond that, I guess, as far as just the appetizer, just overall food, is there a restaurant that stands out?
Well, I don't care what restaurant I'm in, but my favorite Disney Cruise Line meal is the chicken schnitzel. And I love chicken schnitzel.
That's served the last night or something like that, or?
Well, no, it depends. So they have to have 5 nights or more. So it has to be cruises on 5 nights or more. And it may be always the last night's menu. I'm not entirely sure about that. It's not the last night's menu all the time on the longer cruises. Like, I believe I've always almost had it on night 5.
Okay.
I don't know, though, for sure. But there's been a million cruises where our last night was in, when I did the 7 nights, the last night was an Animator's Palette. And I remember that specifically. And the Animator's Palette 7-night menu was not that exciting. Like, the seal went real soon on that cruise. But on the 5-night that I just had, and I've had this meal quite a bit, but it has to be over a 5-night cruise.
Okay.
The chicken schnitzel was just on night 5.
Okay. All right. Well.
So what is your favorite dinner?
What's my favorite dinner? You know what? I'm going to have to say, and this one might be, the one that we've had recently that really stands out is actually at Rapunzel's Royal Table. I love they had like this pasta. I mean, it was like I think it was like a black truffle pasta or something like that for an appetizer. And I think I always end up getting the weird, well, not weird, but if there's like something different on the menu that we can't normally have at home, I'm usually always ordering that. And I watch my wife and my kids order steak or the filet or something like that, and I never order that. And I think I had a filet there, and it was just amazing. So, yeah. I'm going to go with Rapunzel's Royal Table. So,
all right.
Yeah. How about that?
Very good.
All right. How about favorite place to have a beverage on the ship?
The concierge lounge.
Okay, and why?
Okay. It's included and I can get what I want. That's a bad answer. It's
No.
fine. It is the answer.
Okay.
But I like to have all my stuff prepaid for.
Okay.
So that is my answer.
Well, this one's got me a little torn because we really had a good time in Skyline. You know, it wasn't really packed or anything like that, but we really enjoyed just sitting there and we just had a great conversation talking about all the different places that we wanted to go to. The drinks were amazing. Looking at the different cities, St. Petersburg, Barcelona, Paris, London. Just kind of a really cool place to have a drink. But I think that I'm going to
Were you and your wife having that conversation? Like, where do you want to go, or with other people?
No, it's just my wife and I, actually.
Okay, very nice. I mean, not that that's a problem.
Yeah, no, it was fun. But I am going to actually go with the Cove Cafe, and it kind of worries me a little bit that they're going to turn it into your neighborhood coffee shop, but that's fine, the inside part. But on the Magic and the Wonder, I think it's just like one of our favorite places. They've got the little place outside, so after dinner, you know, on those warmer nights, you know, grabbing a glass of wine or something like that and going and sitting out there and feeling the ocean breeze and watching the sea go by, whether you can still see it or not if it's nighttime. But I think that I'm going to go with the Cove Cafe. I just love sitting out there in the evenings after dinner.
Yeah, it's nice.
All right. Here's the biggie. Favorite ship?
I have to say the Fantasy.
Okay. Why?
Well, partially because I really like longer cruises. And I like the decor. There's one thing I don't like about the Fantasy, though. Their ship stabilizer is troubled. And I did not love that about that the last time I was on that ship. And so you feel the ship a lot more. It rocks all over the place. But I like my long cruises, so that's the reason. It has to be a Dream Class ship for me. Because I like the Kids Club design better. I like the space better. I like the splash pad for the littles better on the Dream Class ships. So, and if I have to pick between the two, I pick the Fantasy.
Well, you can't go wrong with any of these ships, to be completely honest, right?
No.
So, but I'm going to have to go with, and I know this is a lot of people's favorite too, the Magic. I actually do like the smaller ships. I really do. I mean, it was fun being on the Fantasy. We were going on the Dream in October, so finally get a chance to do that. But I do like the smaller ships. I like the smaller lobby, to be honest. I think it's just kind of cool. It's kind of cozier or something like that. And it really, to me, it comes down to the itineraries and just the amazing places that the Magic goes and the different places that we, I guess, have wanted to travel. And that's the one ship that goes there. So I'm going to go with the Magic.
Perfect. Yeah, I think our cruising style is, for the most part, different. We like to cruise to unwind from it all and to get away from life and stress and work and all that. And when you're taking the Magic and the Wonder somewhere, you usually have to run around a lot more.
You do.
Which is great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And I love Europe, and I cannot wait to go back and run around. And I love Alaska, and I can't wait to go back and run around. But you're not doing nothing as much.
Yeah,
I don't have to do anything in the Caribbean.
You're right. And I will honestly say that when we saw that itinerary and just, you know, as the days leading up to when we went on our spring break cruise and seeing that there was 3 days at sea, it was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so nice. Not having to worry about getting up and getting the whole family going by, you know, 7 o'clock in the morning to get food and everything else. So you can be off at the ship and doing things. So you're right. There's good and bads to both. Or I shouldn't say bad. There's goods to both, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So any other fun questions? Anything else you can think of here that we haven't touched on to be cool?
Yes. I have one. What is your Disney Cruise Line bucket list cruise?
Ooh.
You can have 2 if you want.
Disney. Okay. I'm going to go with, I would love to do the Southern Caribbean. One of those like 11 nights on the Fantasy down to the Southern Caribbean, hitting a bunch of different islands and just being on the ship that long. I think that would be probably our biggest bucket list one that we haven't done. And this one more so just for our kids. We really want to go up and do the Baltic again and bring our kids on the Baltic. So I think those would be our 2 bucket list ones. How about you?
DVC member cruise.
Ooh, good choice there.
Yeah, is my first one. So I definitely want to do the Disney Vacation Club member cruise that they have for their members, like we talked about in the last podcast episode. And then for a secondary, I think I'd like to experience Alaska with Disney. So I'm going to have to win the lotto. But I want to do it where I have a Adventures by Disney leading up to it. Like other companies will do a cruise tour. I want to do the Adventures by Disney Alaska land tour, and then I want to do a cruise right after.
Ooh, that would be nice too. Yeah, especially if you could do, because the land cruise goes up through like Denali and some of those other places along there that you don't get to see with the actual cruise itself. So that would be really cool.
Yes.
Then you would see all of Alaska, which would be awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as much of Alaska as you can see on these trips.
That's true.
Because Alaska's huge.
It is huge. Although, I don't know, we've got some people that float up to Nome and Barrow and stuff like that. I'm not sure you're missing out too much up there, but I don't want to step on anybody's toes if you love Nome and Barrow. But yeah, there you go. Well, cool. Right. So some fun questions there about the different ships, food, everything else. I think the only thing we didn't really touch on is Castaway Cay, which is a huge part. And I know what your favorite thing to do there, I guess, is to hang out at that cabana, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, all of it. Like, right? It's just so lovely. Even when I'm on the regular family beach, it's just kids are playing and you play in the water. And my son, I guess it's partially part of the reason, right? It's just the perfect age for going and just making his little sandcastles and driving his car through it. It's so fun to be there with him.
Yeah, it's the perfect age for a beach day, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into some pilot questions. I'm nervous. I hope you're not going to stump me on any of these.
Well, you'll just pass if you don't want to answer.
All right.
No one will know about it because you edit the show. So, all right, we'll do an easy one. What's your favorite city to overnight?
Easy. San Diego. San Diego is just amazing. It's the weather's always nice there. There's our hotel's right downtown. There's a great kind of path that goes along the water that I love running along. And I mean, there's always something going on in San Diego Bay, whether it's helicopters flying over or ships going by, whether it's cruise ships or sightseeing ships or things like that. That's just fun. You can take a ferry over to Coronado Island, which is always kind of a fun thing to do. It's just a cool little neighborhood of these little California bungalow houses. They've got a couple different really good restaurants. You can head over to Del Coronado, which is just this cool old hotel, which the Grand Floridian was based off of. And finally, there's just amazing food throughout the city. Our hotel's right in Little Italy. And that place has just exploded. It's amazing what it was used to kind of I don't want to call it a sleepy street, but there was just like probably 1 or 2 blocks of restaurants. And now that whole area is just getting gentrified kind of to an extent where like they're tearing down these old warehouses. They're putting up all different kinds of restaurants and cool little bars and coffee shops. So yeah, San Diego.
Awesome. And it's conveniently located to your house.
It is. It's only 2 hours away by airplane.
Do you overnight there a lot, or wouldn't most of your trips be there and back?
No, we do. We do overnight a lot because there's a lot of trips that leave in the morning, and so they have to get crews in position to fly those trips out in the morning. So we don't have a crew base there, and so that's why you get a lot of overnights in San Diego.
Got it. Well, and we got a little follow-up information. That's always fun.
There you go.
All right, from a listener and Patreon supporter, Marianne W. Do pilots get nervous in turbulence? She finds it terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, not really. I mean, sometimes it surprises you because I guess you've gone through it so many different times. So sometimes it surprises you when you don't know it's coming. But generally, we've got some new stuff we've got an app now on our iPad. We use iPads up front, and that connects to the Wi-Fi system. And so we've got a lot more. It's slowly getting better, but a lot more information. It used to be for turbulence, you just had to listen to what everybody else was complaining about. And a lot of times the pilots will report it to the center frequency that you're on. So center is are they controlling the FAA controlling agencies that you talk to as you move across the country. They pass you from sector to sector, and a lot of times those controllers can tell you, hey, these are bad altitudes, so you might want to stay lower, you might want to climb higher if you can. And that was kind of the way information got passed along. But now we've got an app on board on our iPad, and we're starting to get a little bit more timely information where you can see, okay, coming up here in the next 15, 20 minutes might be an area where we're starting to get into some bumps. So I would say overall, no, we don't necessarily get nervous about it. And I totally understand why because a lot of times, if you don't know it's coming, all of a sudden the whole airplane starts shaking.
Right.
it kind of catches you off guard. So
is your seatbelt on the whole time?
Yeah, we have to keep our seatbelt on the entire time, and I highly recommend. And I know that it's easy to take it off, but when you're in your seat, if you're not moving around, even if it's not completely tightened as hard as you can, keep it around you, because I'm sure everybody's seen those stories where a plane gets into some turbulence and they don't know it's coming, and then people get thrown all over the place, and that's when people get hurt.
Yes. We always keep our seatbelt on, in my family at least, when we are seated, and we try to stay seated.
And so one other thing that I think people don't really understand, but air is like water. Air is made of molecules. And so when you get into turbulence, it's a lot like being like on a lake or a river. And you see like where air is, and when the river's kind of swirling, like if it comes to a bend, well, that's the same thing that happens to air up in the atmosphere. When you get up into those higher regions, there's the thing called the jet stream, which travels around the world. And right now in the summer, it's up over Canada, so we don't get that's why it's not quite as turbulent in the summer. The turbulence in the summer is usually made by thunderstorms and things like that. But in the winter, if for people who fly a lot, when you feel like sometimes it's bumpier in the winter and it takes you longer to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, it's because the jet stream drops down and you're flying through that jet stream. And where that jet stream bends, it's just kind of like a bend in the river. You can look at like a bend in the river and watch the water flow, and sometimes it's swirling around. When you fly through that, that's the turbulence. That
is interesting. And there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are going to be even more interested in it than I am.
Or they're going to go, what was he talking about? I have no idea.
No, there'll be people. That's not interesting. All right. So Caroline Towler, who is a longtime listener, she is your original listener, I think.
Yes, she's one of the original 15.
Yes. Wants to know what a rainbow looks like from above.
Oh, good question. It looks the same as below.
I guess I've seen rainbows adjacent, but I've never been above a rainbow, I don't think.
Yeah, it looks you don't see it way up at altitude or anything like that. You can't look down, but like if you're taking off or descending back into the city, like Hawaii is a great place. Like Honolulu is a great place. When there's rain showers passing through, you can see some rainbows. So yeah, it looks the same.
All right. So some random questions that I have been writing down for months because I knew I was going to ask you these questions. Can you take a will of a dying passenger? I read this somewhere.
Can you take the? You know what? I do. So
I like do not the know. Last will and testament, like somebody says, I'm dying and I want all of my money to go to my girlfriend, Barb. Can you take that?
I honestly do not know. I do know what happens when somebody dies on your plane and what you need to do, but I don't know.
Well, what happens when someone dies on your plane?
Well, you have to take the time of death, and you have to figure out exactly where that person died, because where that person died is kind of like what you're talking about. So, like if you're over the state of Nebraska, then it's right. That person died in the state of Nebraska. So,
has anybody died on one of your planes before?
No, they have not. There was a plane that my wife flew the next leg on that came into Hawaii where somebody had died. And so, yeah, I've heard of it a couple times, but no, nobody's died on any of the planes that I've flown.
What do they do
when somebody dies?
With the body for the rest of that flight, especially like Seattle to Hawaii, real long distance.
So I think with that one, they just covered her up with a blanket, and there was, and then they moved. There was a couple open seats, so they moved her friend that was sitting next to her to a different seat. So, yeah. But I think,
that's horrible.
I think one of them, they moved the body back into the back galley, and then they just covered it up with a blanket there. This is an exciting topic, isn't it?
No, for real though. Okay. Along the similar conversations of death, do you eat separate meals as the other, or a separate meal? So do you and your co-pilot have to eat separate meals?
Yes, they put separate meals on board the plane. So, and it's interesting. Not every, so Southwest does not put meals on board the planes. It all has to do with their pilot contracts and the way they run their airline or the way the company runs the airline. But we do have meals on board our planes, and they're always separate. So usually it's like in the evening, it's chicken or beef. In the afternoon, it's a salad or a sandwich. And in the morning, it's like an omelet and some cereal.
How long does your flight have to be to get food?
Actually, it's not based on the length of the flight. It's based on the time of the day. So depending upon what time the flight leaves, it is based on our pilot contract is based on what type of food that they put on board. And we don't always eat it. So a lot of times we'll bring our own because it's the first class food. I will say this because somebody asked this question yesterday. We were out with a bunch of people. I was out with a bunch of flight attendants. We were actually whitewater rafting. And the guide asked, like, how is the airplane food now? And I will honestly say, and you guys can tell me, I think in the back it's getting a lot better. I think that than where it was going to. I mean, I'm not saying it's always good, but I think that for the most part, the airlines have stepped up their quality of the food on board. So I think that's gotten better, but our meals up front are not the best. So a lot of times we'll just buy our own food in the terminal.
The allergy meals are pretty awful, too. I mean, it's real nice that they offer them, but they're really bad.
Yeah.
So, all right. Are you aware of when there's a federal agent on board or not? Like, do they tell you? So, let's say a federal agent is on your flight doing official federal agent duties. Do they tell you that they're there?
So, like the agents that are like the agents that are there just to guard the planes, or people that are traveling on business?
No, the ones that are there to guard the planes. Are there that many federal agents guarding planes anymore?
I'm not sure if I should answer that because then that takes away the whole
the security of it.
The whole security of it. So I'm gonna like not answer that one, but I will tell you that there are a lot of people that travel with guns on board the planes, and mostly either law enforcement officers or this is one that I think is kind of funny. So my wife, before she was I don't
think that makes me feel safer. By the way,
that there's guns on board.
I know I'm off on the alone factor in that potentially, but I don't think a whole bunch of random people carrying guns makes me feel safer.
Well, I don't want to make it sound like there's like tons of people on every flight. It's not every flight. I'd say the majority of the flights there are not people with guns on board, and I bet you could probably in your mind figure out which flights have the most guns on board. That people fly to. Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, so it's not like every flight or anything like that. But we do know who they are, and then we make sure that each person is aware of who the other person is so that they know who else is carrying up.
Right. So that they're not, in a duel with themselves.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Hey, can you carry, like me, passenger Christy, I believe, can carry a gun, but you have to do all these things. You have to check it, and the bullets have to be different, or blah, 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 blah. Can you carry bullets in your carry-on?
I don't think you can carry bullets in your carry-on, no.
So even if you have no gun, you can't carry the bullets, which would make sense, because if I was a bad guy, I would have one person carry the bullets and one person carry the gun.
Yeah, no, I don't think
and then have those people meet together.
Yeah, no, you can't do that. I don't think you can do that through TSA. I don't think they let you do that. And the only way you can carry your guns is that you have to check them, and they're down below.
I don't know what you just said.
You have to check your guns with your checked baggage, and they're down below they're down in the baggage
below.
Holes. Yeah, so you have no access to them.
Got it. Didn't that guy that had a gun in Florida, didn't he have it in his carry-on?
Well, that's not to say that people have not gotten it through TSA.
Well, we know that that reports out, but I swear maybe it's changed since then. So this was a couple years ago, but I thought that was the issue, that he was allowed to have it because he did the checks and the locks and the this and the that, but they didn't do something. Like there was an extra step that didn't occur. But do pilots have guns in the cockpit?
Yes, there's a thing called the Federal Flight Deck Officer Program, and you can sign up for that voluntarily. And you go down and you get a couple weeks worth of training, and then you can carry a gun. And you are only authorized to use it on the flight deck.
Wait, what does that mean?
That means that you can't use it to do a traffic stop, even though you're...
Right. So the plane has to be like doing official. You have to be officially flying a plane type of thing.
You have to be officially flying a plane, and that's for your authorization to use your weapon in a governmental. I shouldn't even say that. Maybe I'm not speaking correctly. I just knew that is the only place. There have been people in the past that have taken it upon themselves to do other things within the community that they should not have been doing. Let's just put it that way. And then they got their FFDO license revoked.
As they should.
Yes.
Okay. So then, and this is a little bit about your background then. So we do have time for my final couple of questions. We're getting to the end.
All right.
Although I do want you to look into, ask your people the next time you're at pilot school if you could take the will of a dying passenger? Because I read that, and I am very curious if that gets to happen. So these are the questions that I've come up with because you randomly said things in different episodes. So I'm like, I'm going to ask the pilot day. So your dad was in the military, correct?
Yes.
And then you followed suit and decided you wanted to be in the military?
Yeah, it's kind of a long story. I wanted to be a doctor, but I ended up in the military because pilot training was 1 year and being a doctor was like 8 years. And I was like, I think I'll do the 1 year.
So, and did you join the military to either A, be a doctor, or B, be a pilot?
Yeah, I joined the Air Force. So I was in ROTC. So I got my pilot's license just on my own my freshman year. And then from there, there was a couple different programs, one with the Navy, one with the Marines. And then on a whim, I kind of applied with the Air Force. And that's a whole long story. But I ended up getting selected for a pilot slot with the Air Force ROTC. And then they gave me a choice of a couple different schools to go to, so I went and did that. And so as long as I graduated and passed my boot camp, then I got to go to pilot training, which is what happened. So I went to Mississippi for a year, down to Columbus Air Force Base, and got my pilot training done there. And then from there, moved on to this cargo plane called the C-141, which is no longer around.
Aww.
Yeah.
And then how long were you in the military for?
So I did 10 years active duty, and then I did 10 years in the reserve. So did my 20. So to get a retirement out of the military, you have to do 20 years. And there's some different, it's changing, I think, right now. I think there's some different opportunities you can change around to. But yeah, at my time frame, it was like you had to do 20 years, and then you could get kind of retirement out of it.
So did you go to more than one college then?
Yeah, I started off in South Dakota, went to school in Sioux Falls for 2 years, and then I finished up in Tacoma, Washington. Beautiful Tacoma, Washington.
Were you in Nebraska, I thought, or something like that for a while?
I went to high school in Nebraska. So people ask me, like, where are you from? Like, so if I said, Christy, where are you from? What would you answer?
Well, my office is a half mile from where I grew up. So it is very easy for me to say where I'm from. I am from Southeast Michigan. Sterling Heights is where I grew up.
Right. And so when people ask me that, it's like, well, my parents were from Minnesota, but I never lived in Minnesota. So like all my cousins and everybody lived in Minnesota. So we went there a lot. But to be honest, like I never really lived anywhere. I went to high school in Nebraska, finished college in Washington, and this is actually Portland now, where we live, or just outside of Portland, is the longest I've ever lived anywhere. We've lived here for 15 years, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to pretty soon start to say I'm from Oregon.
Do you think, where's your favorite place to live, do you think? Is it Oregon?
Well, yeah, I do. I really do. I kind of came down here kicking and screaming. My wife's from down here. To be honest, I kind of came down here kicking and screaming from Seattle, but this is my story. But I love it down here. There's so much, there's less people than Seattle. There are just so many different things you can do. The beaches are nicer down here than they are up in Washington, my opinion. You've got the mountains for skiing and hiking. You got the gorge, which is just amazing. There's some really cool rivers to go. River rafting, we just did that this past year. We just did that yesterday. So yeah, I would say here, but if you're asking about my childhood growing up, we lived in England for 3 years, and that was by far my favorite place to live.
Wow.
Yeah. And we lived in Iran too. My brother was born in Iran, so there's one for you too. Tehran.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know that I lived in Oregon for 8 months?
I do know that. And it was like after college, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had graduated college. My aunt had an uncle and little baby cousin had to relocate. And that little baby cousin is 21 and was just here this last week, which is insane.
Isn't that crazy?
But anyway, that is crazy. They were relocating and they asked me to come babysit in between undergrad and law school. And I didn't really have anything to do. So I did.
Do you like it?
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Portland's a great town. A lot of diversity and great food out here, and just some great, amazing country to go out and see if you want to go explore.
Yeah, I loved it, and I will go back for sure. And I really, really enjoyed those 8 months. We made it to the end of our time and the end of my questions.
Woohoo! I survived.
You passed. It's not a pass.
Yeah. Well, fun questions. If anybody ever has any other flying type questions, we get a lot of nervous flyers, I'll be completely honest. And that's one of my favorite things to do. And I always encourage the flight attendants to have them come up and talk to us. And I think that usually puts people's minds at ease a little bit more when they can come up and see. Because for some people, it's a trust issue. I mean, you never get to talk to the people. There's doors closed. It's like, who's up there? What are they doing? Right?
Right.
So if anybody out there, any of our listeners out there that has any flying questions, I will definitely answer the best I can. And if there's any nervous flyers out there, if you have any way that if there's any way that I can help or we can help as far as that goes, definitely feel free to reach out and message us, and I'll get back to you on that. But go fly. It's fun.
One of the questions I didn't ask, but you have touched upon it on other episodes now, is that what do you do during your downtime? But we've discussed it, and you read and you talk. And we will probably have you answer more on that another time.
Yeah, so if there's anybody that has any other questions, we'll try and figure out when to fit it into another podcast. But between now and then, we got some great shows coming up, don't we, Christy?
We do. And if you have questions, you want to keep them a secret, send them to me at Christy@packyourpixiedust.com, and I will keep them on a list like I did this time. He did not know these questions were coming.
Yeah, and someday we're going to do Ask the Lawyer, too, so...
Go for it.
Yeah.
Ask the lawyer / travel agent, right? I feel like that's more fun.
Yeah, we should do a travel agent show. What it's like, what it took to become a travel agent and kind of like your experience doing it. I think that would be, a lot of people would be kind of interested in that as well, too, because I know that, people start traveling and they're like, hey, I should become a travel agent because I know all this stuff about travel agents or about traveling and doing Disney and stuff like that. And you could probably give them some pluses and minuses of it, couldn't you?
I could.
Yeah. So let's get that on the docket as well. So, well, once again, I can't believe we're at episode 100. Pretty amazing. Thank you so much, Christy, for going along or joining me in this journey of bringing out this podcast to everybody. And thank you to all the listeners out there who continue to reach out to us every day, who continue to listen to the show and continue to support it. We really do appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you, Steve. And again, like Steve said, thank you to our listeners. It is so amazing to see how many people are appreciating our show.
Definitely. Well, that's going to be a wrap for show number 100 and on to 101.
You know what this means? We need to do a 101 episode for 101. we didn't even discuss this, but now we have to.
Yeah, we do. We'll have to do a DCL 101 show for 101. So we'll get that out there. And I think I've got one.
It might not really happen. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Steve's real tired.
Well, it's got to be out in 2 days, so I'm not sure we're going to have time to do it. But we'll backtrack on the 101 show and promise it to you in the next 10 episodes or so. How's that?
Yes.
Okay.
101 will turn into 110.
There
perhaps.
we go.
Ish.
Well, once again, thanks so much, everybody. If you're heading out on your next trip between now and our next show, Christy and I and everybody here at the DCL podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on your next adventure. Thanks again for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time on show 101. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.